Welcome, friends. Silouan here. Good to be with you again. Today I'm going to continue the pleasant topic of depression, said by no one probably ever. Yet, I'm doing my best to make it a pleasant topic. And today I'm going to go a little Quentin Tarantino on you. You know, I remember watching, especially in his earlier films, you know, as he went on, they got a little bit more direct and narrative, but you know, like a Pulp Fiction's like jumping all over the place and you're seeing the ending of the movie at the beginning of the movie. Well, I'm gonna have a few more episodes on depression, but I kind of want to, in a sense, go to the back of the book right now. So we started at the front with the last episode, but I kind of want to go to the back. So as we dig into some of this stuff, you'll kind of see where this is all going. Now, as he gets near the end of A Road Less Traveled, and he's kind of tying all these concepts in together and what that means, he kind of gives what I think is a really good one-sentence summary of what we were talking about before and how he kind of set up the beginning of the book. Depressive symptoms are a sign to the suffering individual that all is not right with him or her, and major adjustments need to be made. Now, let me say that again. Depressive symptoms are a sign to the suffering individual that all is not right with him or her, and major adjustments need to be made. See, that's a good thing. That's what a good coach does. That's what a good friend does. That's what a good parent does. They go, hey, all is not right with you. You need to make some adjustments. Now, why depression is so powerful is because who really knows everything going on in our head? Who really knows? Okay, who really knows all our secrets, all our fears, all our traumas? Probably only us. Okay, so the reason that it is so important that we learn to understand what depression is and how to listen to it is because it is that voice that knows us better than anybody else, and it is telling us all is not right. All is not right, and major adjustments need to be made. Now, that leads to the obvious question, who needs to make those adjustments? Does the world need to change for us? You know, do our parents, and we don't live with them anymore, do they need to make adjustments for us? Is it that person who wronged us, do they need to make adjustments for us? No, there's only one person in that equation with the power and the ability to make adjustments, and it is us, okay? That is why depression, one might say, is actually a good thing, a necessary thing, because we wouldn't make those changes without it. And then as he begins to kind of sum up the antidote to that, okay, what do you do with that at the end? The very things that once caused us to become angry become the same things that bring us wisdom. So in a sense, not only does depression lead to change, it leads to wisdom. We're smarter. Those things that caused us pain, the reason that we were depressed, the predicament that we were in, when we face them and we learn to overcome them, the result is we're wiser. I do what I do today because I almost died and somebody else died. I'm not one of these people that believe everything happens for some cosmic reason, you know, and that was God's plan. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, okay? But it'd be really hard for me to swallow, like, somebody died and their family suffered so I could, like, you know, speak and do, you know, videos. But I had a choice what I was going to do to that. When that put me in a hole, when that put me in a pit, when I was depressed, and that depression led to worse things, I had a choice. Now, I didn't quite see it totally this way, but luckily I had these lessons. I learned this in college. I studied psychology. I had a professor that taught these things. I learned them. And there was a point where I was able to say to myself, what am I going to learn from this? And see, that is a choice. It's not saying it was okay. It's not saying it happened for a reason. It's not saying, you know, it's all good. I'm never going to have happy memories about it. But I did have a choice. And you know what? I did learn from it. I learned how to overcome it. I learned how to share it with other people. I learned that I'm not alone. I'm learned that no matter what predicament you find yourself in, you always have a choice. And as Dr. Peck puts it, as soon as they realize that they will ultimately be required. Now, this is a word of warning, actually. It's a word of warning and it's a summary. As soon as they realize that they will ultimately be required by the process of psychotherapy to assume total responsibility, notice that, total responsibility for their condition and its cure, most patients, no matter how eager for therapy they initially appear to be, will drop out. They choose rather to be sick and have the gods to blame than to be well with no one to blame ever again. Good friend of mine, he was a Marine, been doing a lot of different things since then, went back to school a little bit later in life, and he's a therapist. And, he got through his school, now he's getting his hours, he's working under somebody, and I met him for breakfast, and I asked him, I go, how's it going? And on the one hand, he said it was going good. On the other hand, he said he was very frustrated. I'm like, what are you frustrated about? And he's like, no one comes back. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, most people come to me, and I hear what's going on in their lives. And really what they want to hear is why they're right and why other people are wrong. And when I tell them, hey, this is going to be work and you're going to have to change something, most of them don't come back because they don't want to do the work. Well, it's not just that they don't want to do the work. It's that they don't want to blame themselves. They don't want to look in the mirror. And it's universal. That is 2000, this would have been last year, so 2025, a young learning therapist, I say young, he's in his late 30s, but a younger, a new therapist discovering what Scott Peck discovered when he was learning to be a psychiatrist probably in the 60s, early 70s, is that people don't want to look in the mirror. Some things never change. And when they find out that that's what's going to have to happen, they choose, that's an important word, they choose to be sick rather than look into the mirror. Now, to those that are willing to face the demons that are in themselves, when they're willing to face the choices that they make, what happens? Those who have faced their mental illness, accepted total responsibility for it, and made the necessary changes in themselves to overcome it, find themselves not only cured and free from the curses, literal curses of their childhood and ancestry, but also find themselves living in a new and different world. See, that's the hope. See, my friend, if you find yourself depressed right now, here's what's in store for you if you face it. Everything is different. You will see the world in a completely different way. And I don't care what your circumstances, you have got the power to do it. Okay? But you got to overcome it and you got to face it for what it is. It's a curse. If you're poor and you are obese, yes, there's a lot of things that led to that. You were cursed. God, I want to hug you. Man, I want to tell you I love you. But guess what? There's only one person who's going to overcome that curse, and it's you. And if you've got the food to be obese, you don't even need anything. You just need less of what's making you obese. You need to walk out your front door and go for a walk. You need to quit eating the bad food and buy the good food. You overcome that curse, you lose weight. Maybe you'll be able to get a better job. Maybe you'll feel better about yourself. You go back to school. Your world will change. You will be different. And I know people hear messages like this sometimes. And they go, yeah, but you don't know what I'm going through. And, it's easy for you to say, and look who your parents were and all these things. But see, I'm not just coming from my own history. I'm not just coming from my own perspective. When I started teaching lessons like this, I was doing it in a maximum security prison. There is no more hopeless environment to be in the United States other than maybe a child in an abusive home. Okay? I would give it to like a kid who can't escape in an abusive home. But once you're an adult, there's almost no more oppressive environment than being in a maximum security prison that you're never going to leave. You've never seen more hopeless faces in your life. Okay, you've never seen more men and women who live almost like animals. They literally begin to live life like the person. The gods are against me. I got no moves. Everybody's a threat, and they live like an animal. In that same environment, I have met some of the most peaceful, grace-filled, hopeful people in my life that are never going to see the light of day. And every one of them have something in common. And the thing they all have in common is, as hard as it is, and they usually didn't do it alone, and they needed help, okay, which is why we got to have each other's back. But they were able to understand that when I wake up today, most of what I do, I got a choice. I got a choice. When I wake up, what am I going to do in my cell? Am I going to PT? Am I going to read my Bible? Am I going to work on my book? They got a choice. When they go to do their job, am I going to be kind? Am I going to be friendly? Am I going to be loving? When they're off their job, am I going to go to the library? Am I going to work on my case? What am I going to do? All day, they got choices. And the ones that find that peace and happiness, and it's very few of them because that is a harsh environment, the ones that do, okay, they don't like it. They don't want to be there, but they're able to find peace. They're able to find hope. They're able to find meaning. They're able to find purpose in those days. And I would argue that they are more free than somebody living free who is hopeless, who lives in a pit, who eats unhealthy, who blames everybody for their problems, and maybe they got a good reason to. That is the enslaved person. That is the person in prison, okay? Maybe it's the Carmel housewife who's got cocaine in the toilet bowl, and she shoots herself up with Ozempic, and she's never happy, and she's always looking in the mirror, and she's always looking at her neighbor, and she's always wishing what she had that she didn't have. She is in more of a prison than that inmate who murdered somebody and is never going to see the light of the day, but they've learned to love and they've learned to give and they've learned to use every moment of their day. And you can't escape it. You can't escape it. But see, that should give you hope, because if that person can find hope, so can you. And if you're able to look in the mirror and you're able to step back and you're able to go, okay, so much in my day, I decide my behavior. I decide my choices. Who I'm going to be kind to, who I'm going to help, what am I going to do for myself? You don't need much, man. You don't need much. You can be poor and rich, and you can be rich and poor. And you can live in the freest society in the world and feel like you're in a prison. And you can live in the most sophisticated, violent, oppressive prison in the world and feel free. And that is why, ultimately, the title of this book, unfortunately, is The Road Less Traveled, because it's a hard one, man. It's a hard one. To face yourself every day, to be honest with yourself every day, that's hard. But the good news is, it's beautiful. And you know what it leads to? And as we go through this, we'll dig a little bit even deeper into it. You know what it leads to? It leads to love. It leads to grace. It leads to being able to find connections all around you, whether you live alone or you have a big family or you're in a prison or you're old or you're young or you're overweight or you're underweight. Doesn't matter. All of a sudden, the world is different. And I want your world to be different, to be better. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have hardship and you're not going to have adversity and you're not going to have bad moments, but you're going to get through them, because on the other side of that is something that you can't even imagine. So I look forward to you being with me again. We'll dig a little bit deeper, okay? Kind of introducing this. You know, it isn't as simple as just make better choices. No, it ends up there. But to get to that point, to own it, takes a little work. And we're going to do some of that work. So go hug someone you love. If you don't have anyone around you love, go be nice to somebody you don't know. Go for a walk. Read the good book. Maybe go find this book. And I will see you next time. I'm Silouan. Make sure you share this with your friends. And I am out. Peace.